Development of the volleyball rule. Group 4. Receive. As you see here, Carla NICDAO is performing a volleyball technique which is receiving. The receiver's job is to hit the ball after the ball is served. One of the passers passes it to the setter, who sets the ball for the passer. Now, for the concept for physics in receiving are projectile motion, initial velocity, and the horizontal and vertical velocity. Projectile motion is a motion that is determined by the object's initial velocity and the acceleration of gravity. Here, the ball is being received. The volleyball is the projectile. The ball has been given its initial velocity as the player hit it. No force acts on the volleyball after the player hit it. Its horizontal velocity stays the same. It hits the ground and it stops. The acceleration of gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared, pulls it towards the earth, making the ball curve downwards. This, however, does not affect the horizontal velocity at all. Only the vertical velocity. If I were to drop the volleyball and compare it to me hitting the ball, both volleyballs will fall at the same time. This is because horizontal and vertical are independent factors from each other. Also, the balls follows parabola motion due to the acceleration of gravity. At the motion's peak, it has zero vertical velocity because that is where its positive and negative velocity equal out. While this is happening, it still moves in the direction to the right solely due to the horizontal velocity. Set. Now, the next technique what KC Chica is doing is to set. Set is the strategic passes among players intent to direct the ball to a spike. Now, the concepts of physics in this technique are acceleration and force applied. A setter has to cushion the ball and then accelerates in an upward motion along the net so that the hitter is able to reach it and put it over the net. The more surface area that is covered, the easier the ball will move because the force is evenly distributed. The goal of the set is to have a little spin as possible on the ball as it moves through the air. Both hands should contact the ball at the same time and release the same time to allow equal distribution of the force to be applied. The hands and fingers of the player must form a cup-like shape to conform to the shape of the ball. This shape to cushion the ball and redirect it more accurately. The cupped hands remove the same spin of the ball as along the rest of the body act as a spring to increase the height, allowing the hitter more time and more ways to hit the ball. As the ball is extended, it will do at the direction the setter is facing. The setter wants to be parallel to the net facing the antenna. Allow the ball to set along the net, keeping it on the same side.
3, go!
Underarm serve. Now, the next technique that CRISTINE JOYCE VEGA is doing is serving. Now, the player who serves is actually the server. Usually, a server uses one open hand to swing and send the ball over the net from behind the end line. The concepts of physics in this technique are potential and kinetic energy, gravity, and acceleration. From the player's hand and going upward diagonally, the ball gains potential energy. From upward, energy is transferred from potential to kinetic energy. Now, when going downward diagonally, the ball gains kinetic energy. Be sure to hit the ball with the palm of your hand. Average acceleration is defined as acceleration measured over a limited time interval, and average velocity is velocity measured over a limited amount of time. When serving, one must stand behind the end line, which is 30 feet from the net. The net measures 90 inches from the ground. When volleyball is served, the server exerts an upward and forward force on the ball. Meanwhile, gravity is exerting a downward force on the volleyball. This downward force is what causes the ball to fall down on the opponent's side. After clearing the net to assist gravity, you can snap your wrist which adds to top spin and skids over the ball as you serve. This top spin causes the ball to fall quickly on the opponent's side after clearing the net. Block. Now, the next volleyball technique that Julius Santos is doing is blocking. This movement is made by a player at the net to prevent the ball from coming over when an opposing player is sending the ball over the net. Now, the concepts of physics in this technique are the first law of motion, mass, and kinetic and potential energy. The first law of motion states that an object at rest will stay at rest and an object in motion will stay at motion unless acted upon by unbalanced force. It affects this technique because every player who blocks a hard-hit ball from an opposing player feels the lost effects on her stinging arms. The server's hand, the net, and the blocker's forearms acted upon as an unbalanced force that stopped or changed the direction of the ball. The object in motion. It is also affects the mass because the lighter the player's body, the harder it will hit the ball. Effective blocking in volleyball is partially dependent upon forceful jumping in order to alleviate the body center of mass as high as possible in other than the other hands can reach the greatest possible height. Further, hand Penetration through the plane of the net has importance in taking away possibilities from the attacking player by reducing the set of direction in which the ball can be hit. Here, when the player bends its knees, it gains potential energy. When the player jumps, the energy is transferred from potential to kinetic energy. And when the player is going to block the ball, it gains kinetic energy.
Oh.
Spike. Last but not the least, the last volleyball technique that MICHAELA NAPO is doing is spiking. Typically, the third contact when a player uses one hand swings at the ball to send it over the net is called a spike. The whole hand is loosely cupped in the shape of the ball and the entire hand should contact the ball. The concepts of physics in this technique are a lot. Gravity, the third law of motion, calculating the trajectory, speed and placement, and kinetic and potential energy. This technique affects the gravity because when spiking, you exert a downward force on the ball so that it falls rapidly on the opponent's side of the court. Gravity works in your favor when you spike because it also exerts a downward force that makes the ball to fall to the court floor. When you know you need to spike, you need to calculate the trajectory, speed, and placement of the set to determine when you approach the ball, which will help you decide the distance you need to travel to be able to hit the ball. When you approach the ball, your body has kinetic energy, and what to do is turn the kinetic energy into potential energy, which will allow you to jump higher. As Newton's third law of motion states that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You will need to propel yourself higher into the air. A greater force must be exerted downward on the floor so that the reaction will force onto the air.